strategy doesn't hold a candlestick to culture and that experience. And that's really what culture is. It's such a buzzword. I would call it's your most common experience. When you're out there, what does it look like, sound like, and feel like?
Yeah.
Remembering they're just kids, like, and creating those types of connections and then letting a few seniors talk to the team after practice, that's where culture's formed.
Sure.
And it's daily. Like, how are you creating those type of opportunities on a day-to-day?
Hi, I'm Steven Racek, one of the owners and coaches here at Forge Fitness. A lot of people ask, what do we do here? Well, we focus on your longevity, meaning we focus on your health and the quality of your life as you age. So by the time you get to the end of your life, we want you to be able to do things that you want to do and enjoy. We take a lot of pride in the community that we've built, knowing that our members come for a great workout, but they stick around because of the community and the friendships that they have. If interested in joining us at Forge, we offer a 7-day free trial. And you can find us at www.forgefitness.co, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Another episode of the Buffalo Community Podcast. This is one we've been talking about getting in the books here for a while, and we're excited to make it happen. We have with us teacher and head football coach of the Buffalo Bison football team at Buffalo High School. I've said Buffalo many times, but Jackson Litterer, thank you so much for coming and joining us in the studio today. We're excited to get to know you a little bit in your program.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Year one is under your belt, going into year two. Before we kind of get into the season preview, where we're at in that process, tell us about who you are, where you're from, what brought you here.
Yeah. Jackson Litterer. Most people around town, I guess, call me Lit or Coach Lit. So
that's Lit.
You might,
that is pretty cool. Actually.
Well, that wasn't cool until I was like 15, and all of a sudden my last name got cool. It really wasn't very cool in the elementary.
Went from like litter.
Yeah. Oh, you don't recycle. You know, all those kind of jokes. And then all of a sudden, it got cool. So I'm thankful for that, I guess.
Yeah.
But so I'm from Iowa originally. Grew up essentially in Waverly, Iowa, where Wartburg College is. Some people might know that. They play Bethel and those kind of schools pretty consistently. But I went to Waverly Sharrock High School. I'm a son of a educator as well. My dad was a longtime coach, athletic director, so just kind of grew up in that kind of a world. And my mom now works at Wartburg College after I graduated, but was there for 30 years of my life. I got my education degree from Wartburg College, and then I taught for 8 years and got into coaching. Iowa, you have summer high school sports. Baseball and softball are in the summer. So I was a 4-sport athlete through high school all 4 years. I coached 4 sports for my first 2 years, and then I met a pretty girl in Minnesota, and that dwindled down to 3, then it dwindled down to 2, and then we got married. And I was in grad school, so that was probably the only way I got her to come to Iowa, because I was never going to leave Iowa and she was never going to leave Minnesota, and something had to give. So anyway, she came down to Iowa and joined me for the last 4 years of my 8 years at a school district called Clear Creek Amana in Tiffin, Iowa, home of the Clippers. I was very proud and thankful for that time to be there. Learned a lot from a lot of just tremendous people. And then, moving to Buffalo, it was not we knew we were coming to Buffalo or really anything. A lot of prayer and a lot of just direction from the Lord is really kind of what led us to here. It was not football that moved us to Buffalo, which a lot of people maybe might not believe me or think that's kind of crazy or something, because our culture just values, those kind of positions or whatever. And so, I could sit here and have a big head about being a head coach, which, it's really cool and fun and awesome. But man, it's not just a title. There's a lot of work that goes into it. As I'm learning, like you said, going into year 2, this was my first ever true varsity head coaching experience. I had been an interim head coach at wrestling, actually back in Iowa for a season, and then middle school head coaches, varsity assistant coaches, all that kind of stuff. So kind of a first time doing this, but we wanted to move closer to family. We just had our first son, Wesley. He was born on New Year's Day, but we found out we were pregnant last April. Actually on my wife's birthday, which was a really cool thing. And
good idea.
Just how it worked for sure. And we just made that decision that, she was she was ready to be closer to her family. And where we were, my family was kind of down in that area. So we were either going to be near one and far from the other. So there really wasn't a right answer per se. We could go in the middle of everybody and travel.
Everybody has to travel.
Yeah, that just didn't make a lot of sense. And just as a husband, I wanted to do that for Hannah, and we just felt like that was the right thing for our family to make that decision. So she grew up White Bear Lake area is where she went to high school. Vadnais Heights is where her family is. And then her sister just recently got married a couple years ago. They moved out to Buffalo after they got married. And so we were actually kind of looking like the St. Michael area or something more central, kind of right off interstate. It's easy to get back to Iowa. We're kind of in between. Hannah went to Bethel University for college, so she's got a lot of her friends that have become, my friends too, and all that kind of stuff. So just trying to be centralized, and that makes sense logistically. We're going to control our life, and we're going to do exactly what we think is right. And then just how the Lord works, that story to really how we landed at Buffalo High School, that is like probably a 2-hour conversation of how it all happened. But it happened just kind of really fast. And so Hannah got a job, and then I'm like, well, if my wife's going to work here, I need a job. And so I want to work here. I don't want to work somewhere differently than where my wife works. And then, oh, by the way, this football thing's still hanging around. And so then conversations were had and interviewed, and now
here we are.
Now we're doing this thing.
Yeah.
Proud to be a Bison. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I didn't quite get. What do you teach?
So last year, coming from Iowa, I was a middle school math teacher is what I essentially did. And I taught in a leadership elective my last year, which was a really kind of fun class. But this past school year, I was a high school special education teacher, kind of more of a math focus, and had a handful of kids on my caseload that I was responsible for, plus teaching classes. And honestly, it was a really cool experience to see more of what happens within a school rather than just your own one little classroom. Like, I felt like I grew a lot as a person and as an educator. And now this next year, I'm jumping into what's called the AVID coordinator role at the high school. I'm still a little bit learning of like what fully is this AVID thing. It stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination. And so there's some elective classes for kids that it's a targeted kind of group of kids that you're trying to meet where they're at, where they might be like first-time college goers from a family, like first-generation college student, or you're just trying to help get them, like they have the it factor, they just maybe don't have all the skills yet, and so you're trying to get them there. And as soon as they get the skills, watch them explode from being just kind of middle of the road or even a little below to they're a high achiever, just like maybe anybody else can be. But then AVID also kind of gets full school wide. It's kind of part of your school's culture, like from the teaching and the learning and the there's just a lot to it, to be honest. And it kind of feels like it's going to be somewhat of like a head coach job, because your teachers are kind of like your position coaches and the kids are kind of like your players. And so just kind of, it's helpful for me. I like to think in analogies and think in other aspects of my life, like how does this correlate to this, like maybe something else I've done. So it kind of feels like I get a chance to lead in a similar type of a role, but it's not about me. It's like you just like being the head football coach, like our success really doesn't have a lot to do with me. It has a lot to do with our kids and our coaches that are coaching them up and building those relationships. And so I kind of look at it the same way. Like this role is really about serving and providing guidance and visionary leadership and connecting. And so I'm just excited to jump into a role that, again, I had no idea about this kind of a position 2 years ago. And now this is where we're at.
Yep. Awesome. You kind of snuck in a little thing about being a wrestling coach.
Yeah.
So
no, I caught that too. It's like, you know what? We're going to not talk about football anymore. We're going to talk about wrestling.
That's cool.
A couple wrestlers here. Yeah. So wrestling, I know a little story about you that you don't know that I know.
Okay.
But what's your wrestling background?
So my dad, before he ever became a athletic director, he was a head wrestling coach for 15 something years, little place called Guthrie Center, Iowa, where he was the head varsity wrestling coach. So I grew up in a singlet at tournaments, my jeans and sweatshirt underneath, but Mom, I'm putting my singlet on over top. I'm wearing my headgear. I'd go wrestle.
Mark still has his on.
Underneath the football jersey. That's good stuff. So I grew up just loving the sport, and actually didn't play it in high school, you don't play wrestling.
You don't play wrestling.
Yeah. I didn't wrestle in high school. Actually did switch to basketball in 8th grade. Kind of had a little bit of a midlife experience, I guess, and it was really hard for me to do that. I felt like maybe I was letting my dad down a little bit.
Sure.
I know it was certainly hard for my dad, but also I learned a lot in a decision that I don't regret it, to be honest. I feel like I learned a ton by making that transition for something that I wanted to do. It was my life. It's not, I have a son now, Wesley, and I love football and I coach football, but if he'd have said, Dad, I don't want to coach football, or I don't want to play football,
right.
That might be kind of hard, but it's his life to go live there a little bit too. And so my job is to love and support. And I felt like my parents did a really good job at modeling that, and it gave me quite the experience. But I wrestled all the way through 7th grade. And so then as soon as I played basketball, 8th grade through high school, then as soon as college hits, I need to make some money. My dad's the AD. Well, hey, we got junior high sports that need officiated. We got 9th grade stuff. So I got into basketball, baseball, and wrestling officiating, and started doing that. And then I get to CCA. I get a football job right away. Okay, sweet, volunteer role. And then I get to know the head wrestling coach who this is funny. When he's a little older than I was, I used to record the state finals every year, or we'd be at the state finals. So like my grandpa and grandma would record it for me on VHS, so I could come back home and rewatch it. I would play the Grand March music. I'd act like I was those guys. I would wrestle like I was those guys.
Nice.
I would stack the couch pillows so it looked like a podium. I'd grab my dad's.
I love it.
I'd steal my dad's 5th place. He got 5th place his senior year at the state wrestling tournament in like 1981. And so I'd steal that like that was the gold medal.
Right.
And I'd wrestle. And so our head wrestling coach, I used to act like either I was wrestling against him or sometimes I would be him. He was from a neighboring school district that I grew up in. And so I'm telling him all this stuff, and he's probably thinking I'm like, whacked out of my mind. Like, that's a little weird.
Yeah,
like,
rightfully so.
Yeah. But it was a program that had a lot of room to grow, and he needed some assistance. And I'm like, hey, I'd love to volunteer. I want to get involved in my community, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, I coached wrestling for 8 years. I've always loved wrestling, a passion. I love coaching. I love the intricate. Like football's awesome. Wrestling is more like one-on-one coaching because you're trying to meet each kid where they're at. And so, just a really fun experience. Learned a lot from him. He's a tremendous coach and stood up in my wedding. Kyle Fornes is his name. And he's actually about to go serve our country. He's getting mobilized for a second time to go do that. And so the last time he did it, I was his interim head coach, which was a huge, I guess, honor in some senses, but a responsibility. And it felt like I had a lot to live up to keep it going.
Don't screw this up.
Yeah, and like not for him, and he would say the same thing. Like you don't do this for a person.
Right.
It's for the kids, for the program, for the community. But that was kind of my first taste of that, and so I don't know. You might see me back coaching wrestling someday. Kids are like, "How are you gonna come do it?" And it's like, "Well, I'm about to have a son, and I want to be a present dad." And so I don't know when that day might happen, but I also love basketball. I love sports. I love activities. But go wrestling. It's good stuff.
Yep. Who'd your dad wrestle for when he was in high school?
Yeah, so Coach Baki was his head coach as a freshman and sophomore year in high school. Mm-hmm. And then, unbeknownst to me, he moved to Buffalo, Minnesota, and I didn't find that out until after I got this job. And then there's all these connections. And then you see the state champion wrestlers we've had, and those are all Baki's guys. My dad has fished on Lake Buffalo with Baki. Back in the day, came up and got to see his old high school coach. So I hear all these stories, and I'm like, this is what's funny. Like, I think God's kind of funny sometimes, and how all these things can connect and the stars align a little bit. And so, that's a cool connection for sure.
It's too bad. So he's my uncle, Jerry Baki's my
uncle.
way. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
okay.
And it's a bummer that he's not here because he could have told you stories about your dad that
I'm
you
sure.
never like.
Yeah,
like
I bet he's my dad.
And I'm sure your dad's got
stories.
Several.
Vice versa.
Yeah. So,
that being said, that entire like woven story of how we're sitting here today is. I heard a saying one time. It was, when you look back on life, it looks like a finely crafted novel. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, that makes sense now. That makes sense now. That makes sense now. Yep. But when you're going through it.
It's a whirlwind.
The quote was, "It don't," but it was a Joe Walsh quote, and it's just like, just hearing that, and then the connection of just like, yeah, we're not in charge of this whole thing.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
And to think otherwise is kind of great. And one, I want to say, our thoughts and prayers to Kyle. Good luck. Thank you for serving our country. That we'll keep him on our minds and our hearts there. So, thanks for stepping in for him and all that. So, let's just being a good, positive role model for kids. I think that can be one of the best things that anybody can do. And you never know when it's going to, change. I like how you keep going back to meet them where they're at, because we've all had different experiences growing up. And I think I know one of my turning points that I think about to this day. I was on a high ropes course. I think I've told this story before, but I talked that he used to be a wrestling coach of mine, and I told him this. We reconnected because we both coached, middle school, and I told him that. He goes, "Dude, let it go. It was 25 years ago." And I said, "No, that's shaped my life. It was such a small comment you made, but that's shaped my life since then." And to kind of think that we've got someone like you that is touching multiple programs in Buffalo. I'm really excited to see you continue to grow and learn, and hopefully we can drop a banner in the gym.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like it's you could call it a job. I mean, like I said, the world gets all excited about these kind of positions, or man, I'd love to be everybody wants to be a Friday night coach or something like that because it's cool. You're out in front, you got a headset on, all that. But I really do look at this like it's not my identity at all. My identity is in my relationship in Christ, and it's a freeing feeling, to be honest, because before I found him, my identity was I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, and my success, like what we do on the field or all that kind of stuff, that's where I found my worth. And
temporary stuff.
Yeah, and you find real soon, man, that's pretty lonely of a feeling. And so to have that freedom to, it's not about that, but it's more about it's my vocation, it's my calling, it's where I get to go serve, it's where I get to go love, it's where I get to go lead, connect, have fun. And I really I try to think about what was the kind of coach I wish I would have had, or I had good examples too of coaches that I did have, Coach Hubbard, Coach Klunder, Coach Steggy. I can go through all these coaches and things that I loved about them, or maybe didn't always love. And you try to do your best to make that thing. And good coaching is stealing in a lot of ways too. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I try to do, I'm trying to emulate from people that I really respect and revere. And also just trying to do it my way, a little bit of just being who I'm supposed to be, or bring my myself to that, not trying to be somebody I'm not.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel really blessed to get to do it and get to work with great kids, man. This place is filled with just tremendous kids. I wish I would have been a little bit more when I was their age, transparently. So, a total gift that I get to be here. And would love to put some banners up on the wall too. I'm a competitor. But it's not about that. And it is, we always talk about, we're not going to talk about winning because that should be pretty obvious. That's a goal of ours.
Yeah. It's
the other team's goal too. So
why
are we talking about two things that we both want? How are we going to get there? What's the behaviors? What's the culture? What's the, the strategy is important, culture's king. Is how I look at that. So creating an experience that our kids want to be a part of, our coaches want to be a part of, that they can be a part of. We're all busy too. Tomorrow's my anniversary. And, probably could or should be home right now with my wife, but she gets the importance of the even this kind of stuff.
Talking
too.
to the media.
Well, but just a chance. It's a platform. It's an opportunity to speak and share, I guess, what's on your heart, and just try to live in that, and just try to be pretty consistent in that. That's a goal of mine. For sure. Not to get too high or too low.
Well, and I think too, you're talking, like you mentioned, both teams have a goal of winning, but what are the things we can focus on? Where if we focus on these things, the byproduct
is winning, right? Winning, it's going to lead to that.
So let's not focus on winning. Let's focus on the things that.
Because the other thing too is you can win and really be doing it all wrong. But winning is like the great masquerade of it's like you put a veil over it and you don't really know what's happening. And then when the winning stops, you find out really what's behind. And it can be a big issue. Or you could be not winning, but you are on the path of what that's all about, of getting there. And so just trying to keep that, forefront. And that's hard in today's day and age too, with instant gratification, social media. Everybody wants, like, you're either it or you suck, essentially. It's
Right.
like it,
Yeah.
like if a college coach, your college team wins, man, they're amazing. They're going to win the national title. They lose one game. It's time to fire everybody.
Yeah.
It's time to get in the transfer portal.
Right.
All this stuff. It's just kind of the world we live in. So, yeah, just staying grounded. I think it's pretty important. Kids need examples of that too, and I just feel like that's our responsibility.
Awesome.
Yeah, this happens occasionally on the podcast here. Is the more our guests talk, is it's way better when we're quiet. I'm like thinking, like, I gotta ask a question. Oh, he just answered that. I was gonna say, what are you most looking forward to of here? And it sounds like that. It was culture is king, but
Strategy is really important.
Yeah.
The X's and O's, or putting kids in the right positions. I like when we build up our plays, for example, we go players, formations, plays, because you got to start with who you have. You can't just say, well, I love this offense or I love this defense. We're just going to do this one thing. But what if we don't have the kids that can, like, do that, physically do that?
Yeah.
And so obviously strategy is important. What are we going to do? How do we get an edge? All that kind of stuff. But strategy doesn't hold a candlestick to culture and that experience. And that's really what culture is. It's such a buzzword. I would call it's your most common experience. When you're out there, what does it look like, sound like, and feel like?
Yeah.
And so culture isn't, like, we just had a bags tournament. Our last day of practice surprised our kids with that. They thought I was joking, like, no way, we're not going to go work hard right now. And we surprised them, like, no, we're going to have a bags tournament, have some fun, our last night of summer camp. But bags tournament, like, that was fun, but that's not culture. Like, it's literally a board, and it's filled with beans, and it has nothing to do but the experience, like getting our kids talking to one another, having fun, remembering they're just kids, like, and creating those types of connections, and then letting a few seniors talk to the team after practice. That's where culture's formed.
Sure.
And it's daily. Like, how are you creating those type of opportunities on a day-to-day? That's what keeps me up at night. It's not about what play should we install so that we can get that guy open so we can go score a touchdown so everybody thinks this coach knows what the heck he's talking about.
Right.
It's just, because if we don't have a good experience for kids, what are they going to do? They're going to quit. To me, this is just another opportunity to speak it a little bit, but also you got to keep living that stuff too. So it's, we can sit here and say, oh, wow, this all looks great. And people can go, oh, wow, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. But there's then that work about actually doing it. Talk is cheap. You gotta do that daily work with the understanding that people are people and we're not perfect. So
Right.
I'm also not going to be perfect at this job, and I haven't been. And I want to continue to get better, and that's the journey.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, I know we're going to have you back.
Yeah.
Because
Would love to.
I think we could do another. We could do 2 hours on your
Just
journey to Buffalo.
Yeah, we could do that.
But no, I think it's been awesome just hearing your philosophy, who you are, where you've been, where you're going, and if you don't have any more questions, I think we'll probably wrap it up here. But for the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Mark Benzer.
I'm Tyler Reese.
I'm Jackson Litterer.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Buffalo Community Podcast, produced by Edlin Media. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts.